crazy.
Yeah. It's novel. Alright, I have 6 o'clock, so, sitting at 6 o'clock, the April 7th, 2025 meeting of the Gardner City Council Finance Committee will come to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
Council Delawitz.
Present.
Council Heckler.
Present.
And Council Mack.
On to the announcement of open meeting recordings. Any person may make a video or recording of an open session of a meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium subject to reasonable requirements of the chair as to the number, placement, and operation of equipment used so as to not interfere with the conduct of the meeting. Any person intending to make such recording shall notify the chair forthwith. All documents and exhibits used or referenced at the meeting must be submitted in duplicate to the city clerk as they become part of the meeting minutes. Is there anyone recording other than staff? There's none. Reading on to section 1, the review and approval of meeting minutes, February 12th, 2025 and February 26th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Move to dispense with the reading of the minutes and accept as presented.
Second. Motion by Councilor Hegland, seconded by Councilor Donalowitz to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. First time on the agenda, item 11515, a resolution of disapproval and opposition to the proposed building department fee increases, submitted by President Tyros, who is here present. You'd like to come up and speak to your item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I prepared some remarks for this evening. It'd be fair to ask why I feel it was necessary to propose this resolution, and I understand some people may think it premature. However, I think this is a serious issue. This proposal, put forward and sent to the council by the building commissioner, is potentially damaging to the image of Gardner, and as a matter of public record, I feel we need to quickly and decisively reject this proposal before there's any inkling that we are going to give it any consideration. Building costs are already expensive. Permitting fees are already expensive. And navigating city bureaucracy can already be burdensome. This proposal would substantially increase costs and give nothing additionally to the residents or businesses in return. So again, I realize this is not the typical way we would do this, but I certainly have no intention of supporting fee increases. There may be an appetite for that. I guess we'll find out. In 2022, we raised fees for the first time in 14 years. I thought then, given the time that had passed, it made sense to do so. At that time, we discussed conducting another review after 5 years had passed, which put this proposal at least 2 years ahead of schedule. I am deeply concerned about the proposal requesting a substantial pay increase submitted shortly after the fee increase proposal. These are two proposals which are included in our packet, seem to be paired together, as just a few hours after the fee increase proposal, the building commissioner put forward a follow-up proposal to substantially increase his own salary. I do not want any of our constituents to think, not even for 1 second, that we would consider raising fees paid by residents solely to increase the salary of a department head. Such a scenario would present a clear conflict of interest. Establishing a link between fees and fines collected by government entity and their salaries of those imposing them is undeniably bad policy. This has been demonstrated time and time again. Frankly, I'm disappointed that this concept was put into words, let alone presented on city letterhead. The other reason we should deal with this issue now concerns the credibility of this council. When we last took up this issue, the mayor and the council at the time said it was best practice to review this every 5 years, which again puts this proposal at least 2 to 3 years in advance. There's a lot of fee increases listed here, far too many to take the time to list this evening. But as examples, this proposal includes a 50% increase to the minimum building permit fee, a 28.5% increase to the fee by square footage for new single-family and two-family permits. It nearly doubles the fee for signs, and it triples the fees for fences, just to name a few. Not just being talked about, but written down, submitted to the clerk, made public record. How do we think our constituents will feel about this happening? When we say we have to raise fees, we say we won't consider it for another 5 years at least as a matter of best practice. And then the time, energy, effort, and resources are spent on this for no good reason. My hope is we will preemptively reject this, that the mayor will also reject this out of hand, and we can send a clear message to the residents and businesses of Gardner that we will not allow them to be squeezed to boost salaries. This is a bad proposal for our constituents. I hope you will join me in voting in favor of this resolution. To be clear, a yes vote would support this resolution, a no vote would oppose it. I also want to be clear that I intend to lead the council through a fair and publicly debated consideration of the broader issue of non-union salaries that must be addressed when a complete proposal is put forward. However, this sort of scheme, I think we have to immediately reject. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just as means of background, so this proposal that the council president referenced was sent via email to myself and the previous council president at the end of December. Department heads do periodically review their fees as a matter of practice in terms of the operations for the department, but it's up to us for the policy-making decisions of it. And when those policy decisions get made, there's a lot of things that have to be weighed out with it. The state of the economy and the fees relationship to the rising cost of everything that's happening in the world right now. I think the cost of building construction, the cost of just general, I mean, we've heard of groceries, we've seen fluctuations in the economy, we've seen different things like that. That's why you haven't seen me propose the ordinance to the council on behalf of the administration. Because it's probably not the right time to do something like this, and this isn't something that I was planning to put forward, and it's something that I don't think is the right time right now for this to happen at this moment. The practice of reviewing a fee structure every 5 years is beneficial, so we don't get stuck behind like we were before. And that's exactly what I said in 2022 when those fees were increased back then. We are able to have fees that are commensurate to the operations of the department. And do our building department fees cover the full operational cost of the building department budget? No. But again, there's the operational side of things, but there's also the policy side of things, and that's the part that we take over when it comes to seeing the relationship between what those costs are with what we're already, the financial burden that's already placed on the residents of the city here with everything that's going on. I'm sure the building commissioner who is here can, if there's any further questions with, the reasons why, what got us to this point. But like I said, in normal practice, I can understand why a review would be conducted in the longer term of things, but there's also the regular schedule that we have set for that too. So I was not planning on submitting this item before the council, and I'm okay with not having it go forward if that be the will of the council as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anything further? Questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Tyros. I'm looking through the packet. I guess it was requested that this come before the council, and where department heads don't have that option to put things on our agenda. I appreciate you bringing it up so that it's not ignored. I think that part is important. I don't know if this would be best for the mayor, for the commissioner, for Councilor Tyros, but do we know, does this connect at all to the working group who's also looking at, I understand, pay raises? It does not?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for my questions.
Okay, thank you. As stated, we are on a plan for 5 years of reviewing these. It's best practice. I'm not going to say we would never go back beforehand. There may be extenuating circumstances that would arise where we may need to. So obviously, wouldn't state that things can change. There could be issues. There could be change in state law. You don't know what could come up. However, we did say that unless there's anything further to add from the building commissioner, that there is a significant reason to raise these fees, and it's not before us. I don't see it something that, it isn't something that I'd be supporting. The timing with the salary, whether or not on purpose, is troublesome. And I know there's a separate item on our agenda dealing with that as well, dealing with salary increases, which we've discussed here on multiple occasions. Perfect world, we would be increasing salaries, and we don't have a proposal for us in front of that, for that anyway. So that's all I have. There's nothing further, any further statements, Mr.
If
Mayor?
I could add just one last thing, Mr. Chairman. Over the past 5 years, I feel like the city has been more development friendly and open for business than we have been in quite some time. And that's one of the reasons why, at least from the administration, something like this would require a lot more thought. It hadn't been put forward yet. We're, a lot more thinking that has to be done, because we want to make sure that we continue to stay open for business and friendly for development, for new businesses coming in, new housing developments, and everything else in between, just like I said during my State of the City address. So I want to make sure that that's clear too, is that those are all factors that come into play when it comes to decisions like this. And it's not something that's lost on us either.
No, additional barriers are not gonna be a good thing, appreciate that. Anything further?
One just actually made me think of this. How are because I wasn't here in 22 when this came up the last time. How are the fees set? Is there a state cap? Is it all to us entirely? Is there?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the fees are set by ordinance, and those fees don't have a state cap. It's based on whatever's set on the local level. You do want to try to have fees that are commensurate with the services offered with the department, and that's not just salaries. That's the other, it's the hardware and the software of the department that's there with it. Those costs that are there. You try to at least aim for an 80% to 90% is best practice for what your fees lie over the course of a certain period of time. When we looked at fees in 2022, that 80 to 90% on our end was closer to 15 to 20%. So the bump that we did back then did bring us back up closer to where we needed to be. But again, even then, the original proposal was higher than what was presented to the city council, because we do have to take those thoughts into account. And that's why department heads do periodically review the revenue that their department head takes in, that their department takes in, the cost of their operations, particularly when it comes to this time of year with the operating budget cycle. But there's also times that proposals just don't move forward because there's other circumstances around the full picture that are outside of the department, and that's where our role comes into play. So that's kind of the longer answer to your question, that there's no state cap, but those are the little factors that play into it.
That was great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's
That's it for me. Yeah.
I didn't entertain a motion.
I would move to send the resolution to the full council for discussion and review.
Second, motion made by Councilor Hegland, seconded by Councilor Derlowitz to send the motion to the full council for further, to send the resolution to the council for further discussion and review. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11516, a proposal by President Tyros that the City Council discuss the creation of a special committee for the Waterford Community Center project. President Tyros?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm proposing this item to task the Finance Committee with holding discussions and providing a recommendation to the full council to the creation of a special committee for the Waterford Community Center project. This project is now at a stage where I believe we have multiple entities operating at the center, with more to come, that we as a city will have to have established policies, procedures, and have the ability to make decisions that are made in the best interest of establishing the operations of the community center. This is something that the city has never undergone to this point before in its history. I believe we have a great opportunity ahead of us, and just like there was a school building committee for the elementary school project, I'm proposing this committee to almost be the same sort of building out the community center. Even though the building's already there, there's a lot that goes with the building that needs to be decided and thought of, and I believe a special committee of community leaders would be the best option. I'd like to task the Finance Committee with this.
You like to add anything to it at all, Mr. Fryerson?
Sure thing, Mr. Chairman. Building committees are actually common practice outside of just schools. We had a building committee for the new police station. There was a building committee in the 1930s when this building was constructed. And it's just to allow more eyes on a project as it moves forward. When the council president approached me to say that this was something that he was going to be putting forward, I likened it to the CDBG steering committee, where again, it's just something to just make sure we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed and put more eyes on something. And it also brings something into more of a public discussion too, so that the members of the public at large are able to see exactly what's happening on here in this building for their benefit in their backyard. I have no objections to this.
No particular questions. You answered the one I have, is kind of with the makeup be, which community leaders I think sounds great. I think it is a good idea as well. But I think it certainly, we'd benefit some time, especially about Councilor Mack, to give it some more thought, I think so. But thank you both, I appreciate that.
I'm going to agree with that more time I think is necessary here, just to think about how you're going to compose it, who's going to appoint people, what's exactly is it going to entail. Again, Councilor Mack's not here. I'm sure she would have input on it. This is something, the project itself is exciting for the city, and we want to make sure it stays on track and things progress there. We have tenants and utilize the building to its maximum. So A little more time on this, I appreciate the presentation of the item by Councilor Tyros, but if there's no further objection, I'll keep this on our calendar.
Agreed.
Okay. Next item, item 11517, a proposal by President Tyros that the City Council discuss the city's current sexual harassment policy. Councilor, President Tyros?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It recently come to my attention that the city's sexual harassment policy is 20 years old. When I had spoken with the mayor and Human Resource Director Morse on this issue, I was pleased to hear that they had already prioritized this work and are working on updating this and many other policies in the employee handbook. And the mayor and I agreed that thought it would be a good opportunity for the council to get an update on this work and for the full public too as well. And I'd like to task the Finance Committee to lead that update with questions and discussions in your subcommittee to bring to the full council on this.
Thank you, President Tyros. Mr. Mayor, anything to add on this one?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. This is another one that when the council president approached me to say that this is something he wanted to put forward, we had a very productive discussion on, and that it's not just the city's sexual harassment policy that's 20 years old, it's the city's employee handbook that's 20 years old, except for the social media policy that's 15 years old at this point. So Director Morse actually brought this up in her interview for the position, and that, you know, there's a lot of policies that we just need a refresher on, and it's not recreating the wheel, but social media has changed a lot in the past 15 years. There's new laws and regulations and codes and guidelines and everything else that's changed in the last 20 years. I was 20 years ago. So it's one of those things that we've already begun the process there. There's a lot of policies that are already done. In fact, we should be done the review of the sexual harassment policy that the council president put forward. I'd say by the time the Finance Committee meets next, it's with the city solicitors for a final review right now. So I'm happy to present this as well as any of the other policies that are in the handbook that we've begun reviewing right now forward to the city council at any time. We've looked at everything from hybrid working for positions to sexual harassment policies to social media policies to time off notifications and everything in between. So if that's, you know, while it's something that's been an executive function in the past, I really appreciate the council president bringing this forward and showing the collaborative work that's being done right now, because there's a lot that is happening behind the scenes that normally doesn't make it to this floor, but maybe should, and just to show that there's progress being made on everything, not just the bigger projects that you see the construction fences around in the community.
Thank you. I think this would, you know, obviously this sexual harassment policy in particular being 20 years old, and it's already being worked on. I know it's something that the HR director had mentioned. She was working on all the policies. This being one of them, there's a lot to do. It takes time to do all these things. You said it's with the solicitor for review at this point. I think the other policies would be helpful to see in front of the council as well. And if the council president is amenable to it, I would maybe widen the scope even of this, of getting just updates on the policies, HR policies, and how they're going and what the, you know, how we're falling more in line with the current times. I don't know if there's information that, you know, who's in your top 8 on MySpace. That's probably not a great thing to have.
I think the oldest policy we had was the dress code came from the early 1990s and listed out specifically which items of clothing were work appropriate and were not work appropriate. I didn't know half the names on the list. So it's one of those things that it's just, there's a lot of work that just needed to be updated, and we're updating it.
No Jenkos.
Yeah.
Councilor Hagelin.
Thank you. No, thank you both for the presentation. Council President Towers, thanks for putting this forward. And I want to give some commendation to, you know, Director Morse as well. I was a little shocked that it was 20 years as well. Working for the school department, the school committee reviews the policies, I think, annually, pretty regularly. We're trained on them as staff every year and have to prove that we've done that training. So I think her initiative to get this ball rolling and to update these things with your support, Mr. Mayor, and the fact that you're willing to sort of include the council as well in what is an executive function, really appreciate all of that. So thank you.
As stated, I think this is something we leave on here. I may expand the scope a bit to encompass all policies without highlighting, though, obviously, this one, because President Flores brought that to our attention, but with no objection, we'll leave it on our calendar.
Agreed.
Next item 11518, a proposal by President Tyros that the City Council discuss the current state of facilities management for all municipal buildings. President Tyros?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It had recently come to my mind, thinking about the Waterford Community Center and certain operational aspects of it, that you know, anytime we have a major change to our city's municipal building footprint, structure, number of buildings, and their use, it's always a good time to take a step back and evaluate how things are currently being done, if there's good reason to keep doing them that way, and if there's efficiencies gained by changing the way that we manage certain aspects of how we operate the city. You know, the mayor and I had spoke on this one. I think it's good from an awareness perspective to understand how sort of this is done today, and if there's any opportunities for improvement with the Waterford Community Center being the impetus of this one.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add on this one, Mr. Mayor?
Sure thing, Mr. Chairman. Right now, the city's facility staff are all union positions within the AFSCME union of the city, aside from the maintenance staff that's assigned to Levi Haywood Memorial Library. The way that the state law sets up public library systems is that the city is required to pay the operations, expenses, budgets, and salaries of all personnel at the library. So that's why if you look in the non-union compensation ordinance, you'll see library positions that say facilities maintenance technician and other titles that mimic the titles that we have here at City Hall for our custodial and maintenance staff. They are not in the union. When the initial cards were collected and the election was done to create the AFSCME union, they were not part of that initial process that was done for that, so that's why they are not considered members of the AFSCME union. Any changes that we make in terms of baseline positions or even the manager positions here at City Hall, the Senior Center, and the police station would have to be negotiated with the union, as those are union employees. However, on top of them, they report to the building commissioner, who serves as the city's facilities director. There are other municipalities that have standalone facilities directors that are paid you know, as their own full-time position. There's facilities managers that are assigned to different department heads. But here in Gardner, it's assigned as part of the duties of the building commissioner. Again, this is one that when the council president and I spoke, it was more just an explanation on what we currently have here, and then begin saying, does this fit what we have in the long term? And I'm absolutely okay doing a study to check efficiencies. Is something that we've done pretty habitually in the past here when it comes to reviewing just, is there anything else that we could be doing different that we don't know that we're doing different than other places that's there. When I was in Rutland, it fell under the DPW. When I came here, it fell under the building department. I know in one of the towns closer to Worcester, it falls under the planning department. It's really depending on where you go to fit the needs of the community, and what had just really been done in the past is what's happened here. What has union, what doesn't have unions, and everything else in between there too. So I'm happy to you know, provide any further information that the Finance Committee and the Council would like to see in terms of how the structure of the system currently runs. We're happy to conduct any investigations on the administration side on if there's any efficiencies that could be gained and if something could be done differently, and have that discussion along with the Council.
Thank you. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both again. Appreciate that information. That's really helpful. I'm glad to be looking at this. I think giving another school example too, I know they're set up where they have their janitorial services contracted out, but then they have Wayne, who's their maintenance and facilities director, and then within that, there's a team of people who are able to help with repairs on all the buildings. So it does keep it a little more concise and fluid, and they work pretty well cohesively together. So I think this is something I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm curious to sort of draft more questions, I think, to bring to our committee, and I'd be happy to do that. You know, for instance, what is our current structure and how does it compare to the schools, and what are our current titles and roles, and just some things off the top of my head. So yeah, I look forward to discussing this more.
If I could just add, Mr. Chairman, too, City Hall used to have a contracted janitorial service. That was gone away with due to the quality of the services we were receiving, but also just the cost of that contract that were there. I've been very happy with the janitorial staff that we have now. In fact, our maintenance manager, Phil Poole, has been a godsend to this building over the course of the past several months as well. But then, as Councilor Hegland said too, the schools maintained that contract, and that's kind of where the split happened, where those custodial staff joined the City Hall union here, where the others, the school department maintained their union, maintained their contract that they had there too. So it's really building dependent, is what I'm trying to say by this. So if it's easier to just see as a comprehensive picture of this is where all the facilities maintenance, custodial, and everything else in between for any of our city facilities, from the schools to the animal shelter to the pool and everything, and we're happy to provide that.
Yeah, I think a breakdown of each building or the groups of buildings that are under whoever they're under and how it's administered would be helpful here. I agree with Councilor Hegland that more time on this is obviously we have nothing here really to, we're looking into it, so there's nothing really to do yet. Hopefully Councilor Mack will then have time to, see this meeting and formulate some questions as well. But I think this is something that would remain on our calendar unless there's an objection.
No?
Okay. We'll keep this on the calendar, hopefully, and come back with some answers to a few questions that were asked about the organization of the management.
Yeah.
And we can continue the discussion at a future meeting. Thank you, President Tyros.
Thank you for the opportunity to present to the committee.
In subcommittee, item 11477, discussions in regard to internal workings groups review of the salary study. Mr. Mayor, any further updates to this?
A couple stuff, Mr. Chairman, actually this time. We do have, what the working group proposed there too, but as I've said in, several of these meetings in the past, any proposal or changes to the salary ordinances themselves wouldn't come up until the FY26 budget is presented to the City Council. Just to make sure that we can afford whatever the ordinance amendment may look like moving forward. The city auditor and I have been meeting regularly to discuss the FY26 budget, and it is something we plan to submit to the City Council in May. And that is, moving forward with the same schedule that we said before when we said we were going to get it to the City Council at one of the 2 meetings in May. The salary study itself, the proposal from the working group, internal conversations between the auditor and I, all of those things are still being, looked at as part of the process here too. Right now, we only have the governor's budget for our local aid. Normally, we get the House and Senate, and we normally have a more reliable number when one of those 2 numbers come out. But I just want to reiterate and just make it clear that any ordinance proposal to any of the salary structures for the city wouldn't come out until the FY26 budget comes out with it to make sure that we can afford it and fund it.
Okay, so be at least a month, maybe longer, depending on some of the outside factors. Thank you. Any questions, Councilor Hickman?
None for me today.
If there's no objections, I'll keep this item on our calendar.
Sounds good.
Next item is 11482, discussions regarding the city's health insurance payments and trust fund. Any further update or updates from the auditor?
I do actually, Mr. Chairman. The city's trust fund currently has a balance of about $1.4 million. That's taking into account the cost that we had from Blue Cross Blue Shield over the course of the last month in terms of our shore-up payments and our regular monthly deposits that we are required to give them there too. Again, you want to be anywhere between $1 million and $2 million. $2 million is your ideal healthy trust fund, but you really just, so long as you're over $1 million, you're pretty good. The city auditor, the city human resources director, the city treasurer, and myself have reviewed different options for health insurance moving forward in terms of moving to the Group Insurance Commission, or the GIC, if that's as it's referred to sometimes, the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Agency, or MIA, as that's referred to, because we like to give everything acronyms. Couple other different health insurance companies, a couple different health insurance brokers that's there. At this time, we're seeing that the lowest potential increase is actually coming from remaining with Blue Cross Blue Shield for this current fiscal year. However, in the longer term, rather than doing a year-by-year look, which is what the city's practice has been for the past 30-something years, we're going to start doing a 3 or 4 or 5 year outlook with it to see, is staying with the same plan coverage that we have now really the best interest that we have. But a lot of the potential plan changes that we could look into, and I say plan changes not in terms of substance, but in terms of carriers, the GIC, MIA, and anything like that, do require a minimum 6-month notice before going into those systems, particularly with the GIC, that's in the statute. That even if we wanted to go into the GIC right now, the earliest we could get in is January 1st, because they go on a 6-month basis on a July 1st to January 1st notification system. So right now the city's plan is to maintain Blue Cross Blue Shield for fiscal year 26. We are going to have open enrollment for our employees from May 1st through May 30th, or May 31st, before the June 1st start of the June month. That way all of the rates are in and employees are put in place before the new fiscal year starts on July 1st. The reason why we have to do that in May instead of in June is because the school department gets what's called a balloon payment at the end of the school year, where the teachers and staff of the schools get their payment in a lump sum for the summertime at the end of the fiscal year. So with all of those in play, that's there. In terms of rates and adjustments to rates, we don't have those yet. We just have proposed rates at this time. We will have those before the May 1st open enrollment date, but I just want to say that, and we've looked at, option A through triple Z. At this point, so that's why we've decided to stay with Blue Cross for this current fiscal year. I can tell you we're likely going to be looking at the Group Insurance Commission in the longer term, but due to their timelines, it wouldn't line up right now for the fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Any questions?
None today, thank you.
No, the updates I was looking for, as we have in the past, and unless there's an objection, we'll leave this on the agenda for future discussions.
Sounds good.
And item 11507.
If I just could add to
Go
that
ahead.
too, if it would be helpful to get the auditor and Director Morse here once we get the rates in to further go into the process, I'm happy to coordinate that as well.
That would be great, thank you. Item 11507, a report from the Ronald F. Cormier Memorial Committee. We had this in front of us previous time and discussed options. I know there was some information being gathered on cost. This has been a big part of Councilor Mack's, obviously, proposal to do this. I don't know if there's any updates you have in regards to anything, no, Mr. Mayor. My thought is to keep it on the calendar, unless there's an objection or any further discussion.
Agreed.
All right, so we'll leave item 11507 on the calendar with the rest. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, motion made by Councilor Hagan, seconded by Councilor Durnalowitz to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? The meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.